Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Castle Morpeth Local Area Council this afternoon on Monday the 14th of March 2022. So first of all, I just want to explain the procedure at the planning meeting. First of all, we are holding the meeting in a COVID-safe environment still. And the meeting is available to view on Northumberland TV on YouTube. Members are asked to keep your microphone on mute or turned off when you're not speaking, otherwise it can interrupt somebody else being heard who is speaking. And could all members turn their mobile phones off, or at the very least have them on silent, please? Thank you. Can I ask for apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, Councillors Bourne, Darwin, Sanderson and Towns.
Thank you. Any from the floor? No, thank you. Do we have any disclosure of members' interests, please? I don't see any hands. I'll take that as a no. Okay, thank you. So then we move on to the determination of planning applications. And just to run through how we deal with each application, I will introduce the application and then pass over to the planning officer who will present the report and also any updates or changes to the recommendations. We then have two public speakers who will have 5 minutes each to speak. There are no questions allowed to or from the public speakers. Members will then have the opportunity to ask questions to the planning officer. We then will have a proposal which will then need to be seconded and then move on to the debate where members can debate the application. We will then move to a vote to either approve, refuse, or indeed defer the application. So then we move on to the application, which is on page 7. And the application number is 21/03918/FUL. And it is the proposed demolition of Story Park Community Centre. And over to Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just as an update to members ahead of the presentation, condition 3, as shown upon page 8, relating to noisy working times, is to be removed as the working times are secured by the demolition method statement, which forms part of the approved plans listed in condition 2. The hours of work on site would be 8 AM until 4:30 PM, Monday to Friday, with no weekend work. So this application seeks planning permission for the demolition of an existing building recognised as Story Park Community Centre. The application site is located within the settlement of Morpeth. The site is bounded by Story Park playing fields with residential use beyond the playing field. The grounds of St Mary's Church are located to the south of the site. This slide shows the existing external elevations of the building and the proposed site plan. Once demolished, the site will form a hard standing area. And these site photographs show the existing building from the adjacent footpath.
Thank you. We now move on to the public speaking. We have no objectors, so the elected member to speak is Richard Wearmouth, but I haven't actually seen Councillor Wearmouth. Nope. Okay, we can go back to him if he turns up in the meantime. So then we have one other speaker, the supporter, Hannah Wafer. Hannah, your your 5-minute timer starts as soon as you begin to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. The application seeks the demolition of Story Park Community Centre. The building was originally constructed in the 1950s and was originally owned by Northumberland County Council, later transferred to the Town Council's ownership in 2020. The building has fallen into disrepair due to the significant cost implications associated with bringing the building up to an acceptable standard. Therefore, the decision was made to close Storey Park. It is understood the closure of Storey Park is a disappointment for some local residents, which is reflected in their decision to apply for the building to be listed as an asset of community value. The building was formally listed in March 21. This designation does provide some protection to the building, however it does not prevent its demolition or suitable redevelopment. Prior to its closure, Storey Park was only used at 20% of its potential capacity, and as such it is not considered an appropriate use of public funds to undertake such significant repair works. The emerging Northumberland plan provides guidance on developments which affect assets of community value. It is considered the proposed demolition of Storey Park wholly complies with this policy, as there is alternative provision of the services and facilities provided by Storey Park to meet the needs of the community, including the newly refurbished St James's Community Centre. The Town Council worked with groups who used Storey Park to try and find alternative arrangements, with the majority finding alternative provision elsewhere within the locality. The applicant wishes to emphasise that whilst the proposal seeks to demolish the building, there is no intention to redevelop the land, and we request that members grant permission in accordance with the Planning Officer's recommendations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wearmouth has now arrived, so we will move back to that slot, and Councillor Wearmouth, you have 5 minutes as soon as you begin to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a huge amount to say, other than the planning application that's come about to demolish Storey Park is something that hasn't been taken lightly in terms of the decisions that have been made with the Town Council in association with local ward members. There is alternative provision and refurbished provision created elsewhere within the town. This building is in a state that wouldn't allow us to economically develop it into such a way that it could be easily refurbished without substantial cost. There is always the opportunity that if funding were to become available in the future, that we could reconsider that, and that the site could be brought back into use. There isn't anything in terms of plans or thoughts for the site that would preclude that in the future. And coming to this point, in terms of the choice to demolish it, it has been the case that we've explored every available opportunity to us. We've had some interest expressed by local groups and local people, but whenever we've gone through a process to try and get that to develop further in terms of could anyone bring funding or feel that they could get any sort of financial package together that could see the site continue in use in some way, shape or form, that's suddenly gone very quiet. And that's quite telling, because that's exactly the same process that's been gone through by the Town Council in their consideration of the site. So I entirely support the recommendations that have been made by the officers, and I don't have anything to add other than that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, now I open the floor to members to ask any questions of the Planning Officer. Would anybody like to ask any questions? Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, just Ms Wafer's very last statement just surprised me a little bit. There is no proposal to redevelop the land. Whatever? Can you clarify that for me, please?
In terms of the application sort of in front of us today, the proposed site plan following demolition just marks the site as to be used as a parcel of hard standing. Whether or not that land's developed in the future, that will be subject to whoever owns the site at the time or anything like that. We couldn't restrict development upon that land because it's in the settlement. But yeah, following demolition, the site plan just marks it as hard standing area at present.
Chair? Yeah, sorry, that was what I thought. So I just think that was just a little bit misleading, because clearly we don't know what we might be facing in the future. So.
Thank you. That would be a separate plan application anyway and have no bearing on this, but thank you. Councillor Dodd.
On a similar vein, I mean, someone's made an objection and tried to claim it as a community asset. Presumably, it stays as a sort of former site or a former, because at the end of the day, it will be a useful bit of land in the middle of a town. So, you know, whoever, whatever, it may lay dormant for a long time. I'd hate it to be swallowed up as some sort of green belt where we ever go never, never, ever in, in time will this ever be dug on. So I think that somebody sometime will come up with an idea for this bit of land as land becomes even more scarce. So there could be something there, and I would hate to think that if it's just left to rack and ruin and it says community or just a hard stand, and I hope it is looked after and doesn't become an eyesore. But the question is really about what does it become? Does it just become hard standing? Does that have any sort of greenfield, brownfield, or what?
Yeah, so the land, the asset of community value is linked to the building itself. So upon sort of demolition of the building, the land would no longer be recognised as an asset of community value. It would then become a brownfield site within the settlement of Morpeth, which could be developed in the future. It is within the settlement of Morpeth, within the neighbourhood plan and the emerging local plan, and it would be recognised as a previously developed site. Ultimately, it would be up to the owner of the land, Morpeth Town Council, to determine what they wanted to do with it in the future, or whether they wanted to sell it on to someone else.
Do we have any other questions? No? Okay, would anybody like to make a proposal? So that's Councillor Dodds proposed the recommendation as it stands in the report, and Councillor Bainan has seconded that. Okay, we go to the debate. Is there anything anybody would like to add? Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, the issues with this site go back decades. I've been a member of the district council, the former district council, and I can remember talk of the refurbishing Story Park at least 20 years ago, if not more. As Councillor Wearmouth has said, no one's actually come up with a viable, sustainable plan to keep it going. It's always a shame to lose something like this, but actually I understand the building's starting to become unsafe and inoperable, and it's been in a pretty shocking state for years and years. So I support Morpeth Town Council in actually trying to deal with the problem that they've faced. I know it doesn't help the people in that area, but Morpeth has had substantial investment in community assets over the years, and I think and sort of going forward, I just hope that it obviously does remain in public ownership with Morpeth Town Council, and I do hope they can maintain it as a green space and actually find something useful to do with the actual site where the building was. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to contribute? No? Okay, on that basis, then we will move to the vote. So we've had the officer's recommendation proposed and seconded. All in favour, please raise your hand. I think we can safely say that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is item 6, which is the appeals update, and it's an information piece. I take it nobody has anything they want to raise on this? No, that's fine. We'll take a short break before I hand over to Councillor Bainan to continue the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Gentlemen, if we could start the live feed, please. Thank you. Right, good afternoon, councillors. Welcome back to the local area council meeting for Castle Morpeth and part 2. We're expecting Martin, but I think he'll be along any time, but we can crack on till Martin gets here. Item number 7 on the agenda, public question time.
No questions received, Chair.
Thank you for that. Item number 8 on the agenda, petitions. In front of you on item 8, you will see a petition. All we need to do here is to receive the petition, and then the report will come back to a further future meeting. Can we agree to receive the meeting? Thank you. Item B on the agenda, report on previous petitions received. No reports are due to be considered at this meeting. Number C, we have no verbal updates on any petition on there. Yes.
I'm chair of the petitions committee, and we did have a one that came to petitions, and it was about the military road between Stagshaw and Heading on the Wall. And I think it went back to have another survey. Obviously, people don't realise there's a 2,000-year-old road runs past their door when they buy the house, but there is. And I think Councillor Jones and I have in receipt of a couple of emails from the petitioner asking when this work will be done. I mean, I know you'll not be able to answer that, but I don't know if anybody else can. Because you know what petitioners are like, they seem to think we can send lots of emails.
Thanks for that, Councillor Dodd. Can we minute that and possibly look into that and come back to you at the next meeting, if that's okay? Thanks, Councillor Dodd. Councillor Townsend, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the new petition here for the speed reduction there, I know that we'll get a report on this. Just a bit of background on that. I was asked quite some time ago by some concerned residents about a crossing, and we all know the Morpeth northern bypass. There's a big new roundabout gone in, and this has opened up opportunity for development. And obviously, we want to encourage school children to walk down from Fairmoor down to the school, but that obviously has to be safe. So we've a few years ago, Glenn and I worked together to get some new street lighting put in for encouraging that kind of safety, that safe walking route. When I asked the question, I think we had the possibility of a crossing went into the LTP, and when we got the results from the LTP in summer last year, there was a denial of putting in a crossing because the road is technically 60 miles per hour, and you obviously couldn't have a pedestrian crossing on a 60 mile per hour road. So that's why this petition has come forward. So it's something I've actually myself already been trying to chase up, and actually trying to get a meeting with highways has been very frustrating. If I had any hair left, I'd have been pulling it out. I have more recently spoken to someone else in highways to try and arrange a meeting, and I've actually at least had a response, but I've had several months without a response from the relevant team. And this covers other matters as well, and frankly, without wishing to go into it too much, and certainly not naming any individuals, it's embarrassing. It's not good enough, and this petition has come forward, which I'm quite happy to have come forward, because nothing's been done, because I haven't been able to have that meeting. I don't really think I'm asking the earth for that. So when this report comes, I'd like obviously to see the content of that, but I would like this committee to look at the wider issue of road safety in that area, but also the wider issue of simply trying to get highways to meet with us, because probably planning and highways are the two biggest things that the public contact us about, and frankly it's not good enough. Thank you.
Your comments are noted. Do we have any idea when the report would be coming back to this committee?
I will have to check with the case officer, Chair.
Right, thank you. can we circulate that date, especially to Councillor Towns on that one? I've got Councillor Jones first.
It's just again about the petition for the military road. I don't think it's actually been mentioned on to this committee. And I just want to say, will the report come back to us? I was surprised to see it wasn't on the agenda at any point. So it's just to ask really that is that the procedure? It's been to the petitions committee, but it doesn't seem to have come to us at all here.
I'm sure we can chase that up and find out when it is going to come back to this committee.
I think there was some discussion because part of the military road is in the Tynedale council area, but the actual residents are all within my ward, so it's you know, it is of interest to this committee. Thank you.
I think on both of those reports, if we can find out when they will be coming back, and we will let all councillors on the committee have an idea of which meeting they're coming to. Councillor Dodd, did you?
Yeah, it was just about the pedestrian crossing on new large developments, and it's something I think we're going to have, as councillors, going to have to sharpen our pencils on, because I've got one at the Ponteland Police Headquarters where, you know, people move in, they say we want this, we want that, and the developers off and away, and I think it's something that we need to write in just when we're doing these policies, because, you know, these crossings are now £100,000. And why should we pay?
I can totally agree with all of those comments, Councillor Dodd. Well, possibly when this report comes back to this committee, and then we can maybe take it further and put recommendations into that report for future road building and estate building. Thank you for that. Local service issues. We will start, Paul, if you'd like to start with your report first, and then we can have questions.
Thank you, Chair. Just a short update here. On grounds maintenance, winter works are drawn to a close. Since the last update, we've experienced a milder winter period, which has helped our teams recover some ground we lost due to the storms, and we are on target to complete all scheduled winter works this season. We continue to work a 28-hour working week during the winter period. Progress through scheduled work has been a challenge, but ultimately successful. Please alert me at your earliest convenience if you believe any requests have not been completed. The grass cutting will be starting soon, and we have made preparations in order to do that. All grass cutting equipment has either been serviced or is scheduled to be serviced. We have interviewed for the seasonal grounds maintenance positions for this year and are working through the recruitment process. Weed control activities will be undertaken in-house again this year, and we will be using the blue dye as this was well received pre-pandemic. For street cleansing, that's business as usual. We anticipate that the increase in footfall experienced last year due to the pandemic staycations and such will reduce this year and should ease pressure on our cleansing teams. For waste, residual and recycling, generally business as usual. For household collections, we are still seeing elevated tonnages from households following the pandemic due to people working from home. Due to the rate of housing growth in recent years, the service will see an additional investment this year of 2 RCVs and crews. Work is underway to evaluate existing demand on the service and plan routes to ensure that these resources are deployed in the most efficient way possible. Garden waste collections have started. With the increase in housing and customer numbers, we've had to do some tweaking to the rounds, and that's been required to accommodate the increases that we saw last year and what we'll expect to see this year. Initial take-up for the service is high, and the scheme remains as popular as ever. And just for additional information, the glass trial's been extended for 12 months. Presentation rates and yields remained encouraging in most areas, and we are proposing a food waste collection trial that's currently being planned, and members will be provided with more information on the trial when the plans are finalised. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Paul. Could I, before I throw it open to the floor for questions, are you about up to date with the guys, you know, with the trees, etc., that have been brought down in the storms? I know we've probably all had a lot of residents on, and, you know, we're telling the residents that, you know, you're so far behind with all the emergency work, but are you just about caught up now?
As far as I'm aware, the tree teams are still working on that, but they have made significant headway on that. We do have some external contractors in as well, helping the tree teams. There are still some issues in certain areas. Some of the areas, the ground's a bit too soft to get on, and that sort of thing.
Thanks for that, Paul. Can I throw it open to the floor, please? Any questions for Paul? Councillor Towns first, and Councillor Murphy, and then Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your update, Paul. Just a quick one on that matter I emailed you about at the end of last week. I don't know if there's been any progress on that. Just for background for everybody else, we have a bit of a situation where the larger bin lorry was having to turn around in a slightly awkward space, and the owner of that area has asked them not to. And the result of that was a letter from the council to a number of residents saying, we now can't collect your bins, so you'll have to bring them down to the end of a lane. And I think the youngest of any of those residents is, I don't mean to speak out of turn, but I've been told that the youngest of all of those residents is 60. And it seems inappropriate to have people in their maybe in their 70s and 80s having to wheel heavy wheelie bins up and down a quite fairly long lane. So we're obviously trying to find a solution. I thank you very much for your prompt attention to that. I don't know if you've managed to arrange a meeting with residents yet, or if there's any further news on that.
There's no further news on that yet. I haven't managed to arrange a meeting with residents yet, but I have had contact of a few of them, and I'll be looking to do that as soon as possible. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to get in touch with them and visit the site. Super.
Thanks, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Murphy.
Thanks. Just a couple of brief questions. Firstly, how's your recruitment going? Because we're hearing about problems with recruitment across all services, and obviously if you're doing recruitment for seasonal posts, are you finding the personnel? You know, are they out there? The second thing I wanted to ask you about was the food waste trial, which I'm really interested in. Do you have any more information about it that you could share with councillors? Have you determined what area you're going to trial it in? Anything you can tell me about that I'd be really interested in. And the last thing was just in terms of Choppington Woods, is there any more work to be done? Because I believe the bridleway was cleared by contractors, but local residents have spoken to me about some stuff being left. Rather than, you know, they thought contractors would be coming back to remove stuff that they'd moved to clear the bridleway. And I just wondered if you could give me an update on that. Thank you.
In terms of the recruitment, we had a suitable candidate had applied for the posts that we had out, and we've offered positions, the number of positions that we had to candidates. So I don't think we've encountered any issues. The only risk is that between now and starting them, they'll find something that's a bit more suitable elsewhere. But that's the risk you take every year. In terms of the food waste, I don't think there's much more that I can share with you at the minute. I do know that we want to try and run it in line with the glass waste collections in some areas. We wouldn't be able to do that in all of the glass areas because it needs to be, the operations need to be done differently for this. But we would want to make sure that the demographics match so that we can get some quality information on present rates from different demographics. Iron out some of the issues that we might encounter if we went county-wide and that sort of thing. But further details will follow as we consider all of that and flesh it out. Chopping Woods, I'll have to speak to the tree teams and get back to you, but I will certainly do that. Thank you.
Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions, Paul. The first one is that my local parish council received an email this year for a costing for opting in for the early cuts. Now, I think, and I've been on the parish council a while, but that's the first time it's ever been formalised into such a thing. We've never had this cost come up before. Is that just because you're super efficient, or is that going to be an ongoing thing year on year? I'm only saying it because we don't have a lot of money in that precept. It is not possible for the parish council, and they decided not, they'd already set that precept, so this couldn't have been included in that budget anyway. I think it was getting on to £600. What I want is some assurance that because we haven't entered into this extra cost, that it won't sort of lower the maintenance on the grass cutting that we've got, type of thing. We're not going to, it's not going to be detrimental on our part. That was the first one. The second one is I've been receiving a lot of complaints about the cycle path from Linemouth into Woodhorn and the cutting of the hedge. And it's the same after every year after it's done. There's a lot of complaints come in about nobody can cycle down it because there's so many thorns left that it punctures their tyres. So that's just an ongoing problem there. And then I have to disagree about the trees, Paul. You know which one I'm talking about, but I cannot see where the tree people are catching up on those problems whatsoever in our area particularly. And fourth, I'm really concerned at the minute about the incidence of fly tipping, because they are just, now they're on the increase again, and not just, you know, the massive things like armchairs and settees, fridges.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. I don't know where we'll go with that one. It's an ever increasing cost. Thank you.
Thank you. The additional cuts, it was I thought it was about time we gave that opportunity to all of the parishes that have grass cutting in their areas. It is to, if they want, have cuts before the core season and after the core season. Within the core season, there will be no difference in standard. Especially the guy who does that area, he'll keep it tip top. So there should be no reduction during the core season. I shall get on to that cycle path, try and get it cleansed for you. The tree that you were on about, I've spoken to the tree officer, and it's one that he's aware of, and my team and him are going to have to work together, because his concern is if he goes on there, the ground is too soft and it's going to ruin the grass. That's why that one hasn't been done as quickly. But I am on it, and I've made a note again, so I'll pick it back up. And the fly tip and I share those concerns. It's one of those things. We'll work with enforcement as much as we can, and we're just going to have to do the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Carry on, Councillor.
Yes. Sorry, just coming back to the extra cuts, Paul. At some point, can we have a report there to say how many parish councils actually take that up?
I'm sure we can do that, Paul. Is that okay? You
Yeah.
can bring that to the next meeting, possibly. That'd be great. Just on the glass collection, Paul, I've got it. The trial in my ward, and it's been very successful. Will it be? When do you envisage that it will be extended through to other wards in the county?
Unfortunately, I don't know that yet. It is linked to the central government's plans on extending that service. There's a consultation being done on waste collections and sort of modernising what they would look like. If the difficulty is, if we implement that too soon, we might lose out on central government funding. So we really need to be in line with the national legislation and how that's implemented.
Again, if when you get more information, can you bring it back to this committee? Because I think everybody would be interested in that. I know in my division, it's gone down really well.
It has, yeah. Certainly.
Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you, Chair. I was about to say pretty much exactly the same thing, just in case effectively we just need to wait for the information to come from central government. Otherwise, we'll forfeit potentially some funding, and for the sake of a short, hopefully, period of time, to have the pressure fall on government rather than local taxpayers is probably beneficial, though we want to do it as quickly as we can.
No, that's excellent. That's explained it, and so we can go back to our residents and explain that situation. Are there any other questions for Paul? No? Thank you for that, Paul. I'd like to welcome Martin, and if you'd like to give a report, Martin. Thanks kindly.
Is that working now, is it? Yeah, apologies for being late. That normally it starts a little bit later. So apologies for
The
that.
chairman, Julie, she whisked through with the planning.
14 minutes.
I was just sitting downstairs having a sandwich. That's the cooling rotting away. Right. Well, since the last meeting, we're pretty much in the same boat as what we were. We're still clearing up from the storms. We're still catching up the backlog of works. We've filled around about 4,800 potholes in total. We've had 2 extra hot boxes on. Recently, the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 hot boxes on in total, so to try and get through the backlog. For some strange reason, the Castle Morpeth area are getting basically 2, possibly 3 times the amount of inquiries for third-party sort of requests for service than what the other local area councils are receiving. So I'm trying to look into that and see if there's any way I can get it down, but I think it's basically just the amount of work that's coming off the back of the winter storms and the damage that's been there for a number of years. So we are picking up a lot more work than what we normally would do. We've gotten back onto the ground at Goose Hill, so a major scheme back open and moving forward with that again. It's been a bit of a slog. There was a few issues in relation to some contaminated waste. The drain. We had another problem with the drainage, which we've resolved. So we're now back on the ground, and hopefully we're going to try and push some extra resource at that and try and get it back on time schedule. Whether we're not successful would be dependent on the weather that we've got at the moment, and whether the subcontractors that we require can pull their schemes around to match in. We've finished off all our LTP works for this year, save North Road, which we're on North Road and Ponteland at the moment, and we're ready to kick off again post-April. We've completed all of where other reactive maintenance, where we're refurb sort of works, or minor patching and things like that. We've sort of completed all of them now, so we've got a bit of a sort of lull between now and the big post-April where it kicks off. That'll all kick off again. The drain gully-wise, we've got 2 new gully wagons which have arrived. There's another 2 to come. They're being post-dated in the delivery from the manufacturer. We're not going to get them out to the teams, the 4 service areas until hopefully until the end of this month. The first one arrived on the 7th. One due in today, actually on the 14th. Another one on the 21st, and another one on 2 on the 21st. So we'll be getting new gully wagons out, which will assist in the delivery of gully maintenance. The vehicles that we've got at the moment are old vehicles and they're off the road more than what they are on the road. So you will see, we'll see benefits to that. Hopefully quite quickly. To be fair, it's the vehicles they should be doing 60 to 80 a day rather than the average of 20 to 30 which we're managing, and that is purely because of the amount of times the vehicles are off the road. So you will see an impact in relation to that. We've got a number of drainage jobs to go post-April as well. From the clear up, we're identifying large amounts of surface water drainage jobs which need to be investigated. A lot of them are ditches and culverts which have been blocked with debris from the storms. And again, a lot of that is a lot that we've got already pre-recorded and are waiting to sort of push off. But we're also receiving large amounts of inquiries for the surface water flooding. So we're trying to get on top of that, and then we've got to prioritise our programme for that. So yeah, please bear with us for that. And I think that's about all we've got in relation to our area.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. Could I, before I throw it open, ask a question? And I don't want to put pressure on you or expect an exact timage. Goose Hill, roughly a completion date? I know that a lot of traders in Morpeth were, you know, looking for the summer and are getting the extra car parking. Have you any sort of rough idea? Don't worry, we'll not.
It won't be late summer. If it would be at the earliest towards the end of autumn.
Right.
It was a 48-week scheme originally.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was supposed to start November. I think was the last week in November was our first start date, and then obviously we ran into the contaminated waste issue, which was unforeseeable. So we're going to have to add on them extra weeks. So we did say, like I say, 43 week originally, but we had scope of 3 weeks on that, which is what we always put in anyway. So we're anticipating, and that would have brought we in around about sort of end of August time. So now I think we'll put another 5 weeks on top of that. Will take we to basically November next year.
Great. I know the troubles you've had there, so it's quite understandable. Can we throw this open? Could we have any questions? Councillor Dodd, then.
Yeah, I've got two items. One is the Berwick Hill that road towards Kirkley, and it's being used by HGV wagons.
Yep.
Now there is I was first told there was no restrictions on that road. Now I'm told it's a 7.5 ton. Well, I'm seeking clarity because there's 2 or 3 residents kicking up because I've seen film footage of our ticks. I mean, it's really not. It's a single track lane, and our ticks are going there, and I suspect they're going to a development site at Twisel, apart from other places. You know, trying to save a few miles, but the road is not suitable, and I'm just seeking clarity. Who polices this? Is it us or is it the police?
It's the police.
And will they do anything about it?
They should.
They hesitated, so I think that's a no.
Yeah, they should, but if you know, they all prioritise that along with their workload, I would assume that would be the answer their senior management team would give if they were at this meeting.
The other one was, I've had it in my neck ever since I've been a councillor, about wagons going through Ponteland. And you know what I'm talking about. There's one individual and he seems to be trying to gather pace. But the roadworks on the A1 have not helped this situation because a lot of HGVs will think, all right, I'll just nip through there if they were heading west rather than going down the route. Is there any what I'd call temporary things that could be done while there's roadworks? Because the roadworks flags up on the A1, so people look for alternatives, and it's through Ponteland.
I'll have to take that back to our traffic and road safety team and ask the question. They didn't used to be. If the roadworks were away from, only if it was on a diversion route, would planning would then be able to assist with our sort of with our decision making on what roads vehicles can use. But because there's no diversion route from the A1 is just a restriction of traffic during their working hours. I'd have to seek sort of legal advice on that. I don't think there is, though, Richard. If you know, but I will ask the question.
Thanks for that, Martin. Councillor Dunn, and then Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Well, the first one, I've got a couple of things, but the first one isn't so much a question as to say thanks to Martin's team. There you go.
Oh.
For several months ago, I asked Martin if he would see to get the lines in the back streets in Linemouth Village refreshed. There had been a car accident because you can't see who has right of way at the junctions. And actually, when I was speaking to Martin and he was trying to tell me how little money we had for this, that exact day there was a team doing just that job, and they've made a really good job of it, Martin, I've got to say, despite the fact that you were trying to tell us you had no money. So, so yeah,
I'm never going to say anything different, am I?
Don't. I would like to say I don't think there's enough money in that budget, if that's what Martin was telling me is right. But we have got our white lines now, and it's much appreciated, and it is much safer, I've got to say, Martin. So thank you very much, and please pass it on to the team who, who you know, took heed of my email, shall we say. No. The second question, and it's probably not directed at Martin because it's local transport plan, really. At the last LAC meeting, I did raise some concerns about the draft local transport plan, and the leader of the council at the time made suggestions that it would be reassessed going forward, or will we get somebody to re-examine it? Just to say, I haven't heard anything about that yet, so I'm wondering when the draft plan is actually finalised, and if I've run out of time to argue this point with anybody.
Martin, can either answer that, or Councillor Wearmouth is putting his hand up. So Martin, if you would rather pass that on to a politician.
Yeah, I would. I'll gladly pass that question over.
The answer is that I'll have to check, but unfortunately Glenn can't make it today. He's a little bit unwell, but as members may know. But I shall seek an answer, and if I could be reminded by the Democratic Services Officer tomorrow morning, that would be useful. Thank you.
If Richard, if you could do that, can we have that circulated around members of the committee, please? Thank you. Any other? Sorry,
yeah.
yes,
Sorry, I haven't finished. I had my third one, which is about the LTP, but last year's. That we were lucky enough to have some traffic calming measures going on in Ellington, and that did start, but it's come to a bit of an abrupt halt. I assumed it was because of the COVID and things going on, but if we can just get some idea about when that'll start up again, that would be good.
Yep, no problem. Councillor Murphy.
Thanks. Martin, you said 4,800 potholes filled in. It's pretty impressive. I'm just wondering over what time period?
2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, that's 3 hot boxes with eight ton. Well, there's 3 hot boxes for the last 3 weeks. But prior to that, there's 2 hot boxes with 8 ton on each. That's 16 ton a day, plus 2 reactive teams on the ground with a ton a day, doing the more sort of the emergency stuff in between.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. It just shows the extent of the work being done, but it also shows the extent of the need, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just wanted to give a shout out for our area, because at least we're not dependent upon Rod Stewart to come and fill in our potholes.
No, I've seen that.
And I think if we ever get to the point where Robson Green's running around the streets filling in potholes, then we need to worry. So well done to all of you.
That's good. Are there any other questions for Martin? No. Thanks, guys. And you can leave. Hopefully, we'll be following very shortly. But thank you very much for your report as ever. And if you can pass on again from all of us to the guys on the ground, you know how much we appreciate all the hard work they do. Thank you. Right. Item 10 on the agenda. Local Area Council Work Programme. It's just really to note the programme, and the date of the next meeting is Monday the 11th of April. And once again, we've had 2 sort of comments about petitions, which is great, but this is your committee, so if there's anything you want put on the agenda, please approach, and we'll get things on for your areas. Any other urgent business? I don't have any, and I don't think we have any on the floor. So thank you all for your time, and we close the meeting at 5 minutes to 5. Thank you. Not as quick as Julie, but